So, hi everyone. My name is Sherifat. With me today is a special guest, as always. His name is Nathan Hawking. Welcome to this conversation, Mr. Nathan.
No, thank you. Thanks for reaching out and asking me to come on. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you again. And if it's going to serve you in your mission and what you're doing, I'm more than happy to help anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
Um, Before we go into the conversation, are you open to playing a game just for fun, like to set the atmosphere light before going into,
Sure.
the real conversation?
Yeah, of course.
So this game is called reverse spelling.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a word. You're going to spell, and there are two rules to it. The
Okay.
first is it has to be fast, and then the second is not fast like fast, but it has to be like fast. Then the second is there should be no, like you can't spell a word twice. For instance, if the word is pot, spell backwards, it's going to be T-O-P,
Hmm.
right? You can't say sorry. I don't know if you understand. So it has to be one and then like that.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So it's got to be fast, and it
So
can't be
it's
the
going
same word.
like I'm going to be giving you two words to
Okay.
spell. You are also going to be giving me two words to spell. So if you win, the ticket is that you are going to be kickstarting it with a question.
Okay.
That's if you win. But if you don't, I have to like do all the questioning.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Mm. So the first word is friend.
Friend. Okay. And
Yeah,
so I have to spell it backwards.
yeah.
Okay. Uh, my goodness. Neirf. Is that right?
Is that all?
Um, and so I got to
That's
come.
wrong.
Is it wrong? Oh
That's
my
wrong.
goodness.
That's wrong. So you failed one.
Okay. All
Then
right.
the second is school. Spell backward.
Loohcs.
Hmm. Yeah, you got that one right. Oh, oh, you got that one right.
Nice.
Oh God, that's 2/1.
Okay. Cool.
So then you have to ask me.
Okay.
I'm
So a
very
word.
bad at spelling. Okay.
Okay. Work.
Krow. I got that one. I got it. Krow.
Yeah. Very good.
I got
Very
it.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Next one. Coach.
HCAOCH.
What did you say? HC. Yeah. Yeah.
HCAOCH.
Uh, that's wrong.
Yeah, it's supposed to be HC.
No. So it's coach. So COACH. So it's HCAOC.
So now we scored like 1-1, right? So what do we do?
What do we do? So do you want me to ask a question?
Yeah, ask a question. Since you scored one.
Okay, cool. Let's see. What is one thing that you've learned over the last 12 months that's totally changed your perspective on life?
Hmm. Ask me the question again, please.
What's one thing that you've learned over the last 12 months or the last year that has totally changed the way you see your life?
Hmm. This one is deep.
Well, that's sorry, that's just what I do.
Oh God. Oh God.
I can do an
Hmm.
easier one if you want.
No, let me answer this one.
Okay, cool.
Um, what I've learned is that life is just happening. And my body is just a system that goes with it. And the only power that I have is to take care of my inner world. I can't control anything that is happening outside of me. I can't control anybody's response. I can't control the good or the bad, but I can control my response. And what determines how I'm able to control my response is in that moment, if I am being authentic, if I'm present enough, and if my soul, like my body, is aligned with my soul. Because I'm going to explain what I mean by my body is aligned to my soul. My body is the outward engine. There are a lot of things that happens inside of it. So, like for instance, emotions, actions. If right now I just decide to end this call, it is as a result of an action to something that is happening inside of me. Now, there are a lot of factors that determines this action and what my body does. So it is either that my body is aligned with my thoughts or it is aligned with my soul.
Mm.
So when my body is aligned with my thoughts, that is the ego. I don't know where the ego is in this system that I call body, but when it is aligned with my thinking, that is the ego. That is when I do stuff that I regret. That is when I panic and act from a place of fear. And when my body is connected to my soul, it just it's just more freeing, you know,
Yeah.
it's more satisfying. So what determines what my body aligns with is the food that I take. So the food, my intake determines what my body aligns with. So this is what I've learned.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I think I had a friend of mine, and I quote this quite a lot, but a friend of mine once said, and it was a quote from somewhere else. It's definitely an old quote, probably from a philosopher or a spiritual person. And he said, the journey out is in, which means that anytime there's an external problem that you're trying to solve, you have to look inside. You have to always go inside yourself first to try and understand why it's an actual problem. And so once you can solve that inside yourself, then the external problems become much easier to solve as well. So that makes a lot of sense with what you said about being aligned with your body and your mind.
Yeah. And I also noticed because I went to check some of your work, I noticed that majority of it is based on self-awareness, being in the now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it is different from what I used to know. You probably have like this awareness or just everything that you're talking about now, but it's not as deep as you used to talk about it then. So my question is what happened and what changed?
I wouldn't say it's not as deep. Maybe in just some of the content which I'm putting out there, but the work I actually do is usually quite deep. When I'm working with a client, it's very deep, introspective work, a lot of deep questions, a lot of questions.
No, let me rephrase the question.
Sure.
My question is what I'm seeing you talk about majorly and mostly is now about self-awareness, self-development,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, self-awareness, nature, you know, you are going out more in nature and it is like not so obvious then. I don't know if it is there, but it is not so obvious as it is now. Am I
Uh,
correct?
uh, I don't think I understand the question as much. But let me. So I think what you're seeing is some of the videos that I'm doing when I go out camping and I'm out into the woods and I'm doing
Yeah,
that type
yeah,
of stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's more like a separate part of what I do. Um, so for me, over the last few years in particular, I've really started to enjoy getting out and hiking and camping in the woods by myself at night, like doing wild camping and things like that. And that's been part of my kind of new passion to get into nature more often and disconnect from like all the screens and the technology and things like that,
Yeah,
even
that's
if
exactly
it's,
what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's just part of just something new that I'm doing that I've just really discovered inside myself. I think COVID and those couple of years kind of brought that out of me because I started to see some videos of people doing it. I started to understand about how like the world really works with the powers that be and the control that happens around us. And so one of the things I really wanted to do was break free of that in little ways, and getting out into nature and doing that is my way of doing it. And I really enjoy it. Like I really enjoy watching a lot of the videos of just guys like myself going out and camping in the night and just having their tent and all their gear and just being alone. I've always enjoyed being alone myself, and it's just a part of what I do now, and that's more like a pastime. But I incorporate my learnings from it because I believe that what I experience when I go do it, there's a lot of very valuable lessons there for kind of leaders and people that I work with. And I like to bring that into it, plus also show that side of my life as well. So it's not all just about like the coaching and the professional side of Nathan. This is like, well, this is just part of what I do and I love doing it. So I'll make videos and put them out there.
Hmm. So, like, I would love for you to answer the question that you asked, which is for the past 12 months, what is that one thing that you've learned and that changed your life?
It's not so much something that, well, it's kind of something I learned, but at this stage of my life, with inside myself, I'm at the most peace that I've ever been about who I am. I know for many years, especially like a long time ago, I was quite insecure. I wasn't confident or anything like that. And these last 12 months or even 24 months, I've just inside myself gotten to a place where I am at such peace with who I am. Like, still have my own challenges, of course, and I still have those moments of frustration where, like, maybe the ego or whatever comes up. And so the lesson from it is that focusing on that inner peace and focusing on being good with who you are, like all your strengths, all your weaknesses, everything that you think is a weakness, which is actually usually a strength, all those things, being comfortable in your own shoes and learning just to be like accept who you are. Yes, change if you want to make some changes, which are more for the positive. But I think the by focusing on being good with you, it makes life a lot easier and it helps to be able to do the things that you really want to do. Because if you can get over your own insecurities and your own doubts and your own fears, move beyond it, become at peace with yourself, then you can actually take steps towards the things that you want, or at the very least, just be happier every day because the things that used to stress you out, they don't stress you out anymore. You just show up powerfully in life.
So, how do you find peace within yourself?
It's a really good question. I don't think there's a simple answer to it. I've looked back on everything that I've done, and that's everything from, so I'm 41 now. I started on this personal development journey, I guess you could call it, when I was 30. And that began with asking questions of within inside myself, like, is there anything more than this? Is this all that life has to offer? Because I wasn't in a very good place. And that kind of led me onto personal development. And I started to learn that if anything is going to change, I have to work on myself. And so there was all that study that I did with NLP, personal development, even coaching, doing the coaching work. Then there was things like even trying ayahuasca, um, even doing things like microdosing from time to time. So I've tried that. So it's not like just a single thing. I think it's a culmination of things. Once you decide that you want something more or something different, or you just want to be better, or you're feeling so like a lot of negative emotions. And I think once you decide that, you know what, I don't want to feel this anymore, then you take all these steps along the way, which eventually will lead you to that place of, I guess, inner peace. And but it's not like, or you can pick up a book and read it; it'll change your life. It might bring new insights and raise your awareness to a point. And I found that that typically prepares you for the next thing, which is going to be coming, which is going to be that additional thing, which helps you release something else, release a limiting belief, or just be more comfortable with yourself. But I think if you were going to say what's something that you can do about it, it's just looking at yourself and starting to accept you for who you are. all your strengths and weaknesses and start to see the good things in everything about yourself, and noticing, or at least bring into your awareness, the things which are causing you that stress or that anxiety and things like that in your life. So it begins with that, just understanding that, yes, I want to change. And then the journey ahead is going to be the exact thing that I need to be doing at any given time. And it all adds on to the destination of becoming in a place where you just feel good with yourself, and then the challenges which are presented to you don't feel like challenges anymore.
Hmm. You said something that I would love for you to dive deeper in. You said just watching a video cannot make the change. Not in this exact word, but not watching videos cannot give you the change that you want. And this contradicts what is happening, like what we see in the self-development world, of constant consumption, wanting to consume more,
Mm-hmm.
hoping and thinking that, oh, this one video is going to help me, not this one, this one, this one. And then we just waste most of our times, on consumptions. So what's like, how would you, just like from your own personal experience, when did you discover that just watching videos cannot bring the change that you want for you?
Yeah, that's also a good question. I wouldn't say it's one particular time. I would say it's a culmination of times, but I think the main realization I had was consuming and not doing anything. So I was like listening to a lot of books, which is all good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's the more you listen to stuff like that, the more videos that you watch. Yes, it is going to help, but there has to come a time when you're practicing what you're consuming. And I find this is the problem, because one of the things that like really has bugged me before is that there's a concept of like read like a CEO, which is all a big marketing ploy for a company to get you to buy more books, things like that, subscribe to a book service, that type of thing. Because read like a CEO, or I remember speaking to someone in South Africa, she's trying to read like a book every week or something like that, or so it was just a lot of books in a year. Um, but it's not about the consuming them, it's about, are you putting into practice what you're actually learning? And so my philosophy is, if you're going to read a book and then read it again, and then read it again, and then read it again, or keep coming back to it from time to time, because you got to be able to take the steps of what you're actually learning and put them into practice. And I think this is where a lot of people fall short, because it is just about consumption. It's about watching the next video. It's about buying the next product, subscribing to the next thing. I think we have to understand that all that stuff out there is marketing. Even with what I do, I put a lot of content out there, and my content, I try to provide value. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing anything with it, it's just content, right? And ultimately, I am selling my coaching service under it. But that's not my intention, just to specifically sell it. It's like, I want to put value out there. But you could watch all of my videos, you could read all of my content, but if you're not doing anything about it, then it's almost like a waste of time. You might feel good, might have some insights and be like, oh yeah, I could make a few changes in my life, but you need to stop reading as much, or stop consuming as much. Find a couple of people that really resonate with you, even if it's two or three, listen to them, and then make sure that you're taking the action on top of that and putting what you're learning into practice.
I'm finding this conversation really, really interesting. You also made mention of something which is like social media, which brings me to the next topic that I really had like an agenda to talk about.
Sure.
And I'm thankful that life is just like driving us there, which is social media. So do you think that social media is helping us to be a better human, or do you think it is doing the opposite of it?
Hmm. I I don't think it helps us to become a better human, but it depends which way you look at it. Because if you use it as a tool rather than a thing to control you, then yes, it can help you, because it gives you access to people and resources which may not have been in your awareness or your ability to connect with prior to it. It's only when it's used in that controlling type of way, where you can't get out of your phone, which I fall victim to that myself, especially because I've got a social media presence. It's not big or anything, but I do find myself on LinkedIn checking like post impressions, if anyone's been following my stuff or anything like that. And I try to stay away from it, but I do find I'm in my phone too much. And that's when I notice that it's more of a control thing. So I think, in answer to your question, it can be something that helps you if you're using it like the tool that it is, or as a tool, rather than being an escape from yourself. because this is also something you have to remember is there's so many distractions out there, Netflix, movies, TV shows, video games, our phone, social media, TikTok, all that stuff. If you're using it to learn and grow, then that's great. Of course, you can have a bit of fun. There's nothing wrong with kicking back and relaxing for a while and watching some videos and stuff like that. It's all part of it. We still need our downtime. But when it has a control over you and it's serving as a distraction away from things that you either need to work on yourself or a vision or a dream or something that you're working towards, I think that's where the problem is. And I think that's the challenge with most people, particularly if you're not someone who's accustomed to working on yourself or going inside yourself to understand what's going on with yourself, raising your awareness and understanding what makes you tick and what's causing frustrations and things like that, or the ego, as you mentioned before. If you're putting yourself in a position where you're constantly distracted, you're not learning more about yourself, which is not going to bring you that inner peace. It's not going to lead you to creating something in your life that you might want, no matter how big or small it is. So I think it's a bit of both. It depends on how you actually use it and if it's using you.
I love what you shared, but to look at it from what you said earlier, which is that just consuming content cannot be of help to you if you are not doing anything. And this is where I feel like a lot of the misunderstanding is coming from. People are like, okay, once you are using your phone for the right thing, like consuming stuff that is helpful to you, then it's fine. You are using it well. If, for instance, you are watching like self-development, how to be disciplined, how to not procrastinate, then you are using it well. But then again, like you can actually be consuming these stuffs and be bad, like, and be worse than another person that is just like using it for entertainment purposes. Which brings us back to what you said about overconsumption of these stuffs without using it for anything. So where would you say, like, how does one feel inside of themselves, or what are the signs rather that makes one to feel like, oh, I think I'm using this social media for the right thing, or I'm using it for the wrong thing?
Yeah, I think this is where your intuition comes into it, which is once again is something that most people aren't, or they haven't developed the skill to be able to trust their gut, trust their intuition, and listen to the voice in your head that says, "Stop doing this." Like any bad habit that we have, eating too much junk food or chocolate, or watching too much Netflix, or scrolling through your phone, or whatever it is. That voice is always going to be inside you that says, "Stop doing this." Go read a book, get to the gym, go outside for a walk, whatever it is. There's always going to be that intuition or that voice, that feeling that's telling you you got to stop doing this. This is not good for you. And I think it's beginning to listen to that and almost do what it says in a way where, like, you know what, I need to stop this. As soon as you start to feel that, then you acknowledge it, like, all right, cool. Put my phone aside or put my video games down or whatever it is. I'm going to go do something else. And that's a lot of like a big part of the work that I do is actually raising your awareness, but developing that relationship with your unconscious mind and your intuition. And a lot of the work that I do in coaching is very intuition based. So even when I'm speaking with a client, I come from my intuition. I try not to have like a script or too much of a plan for each session, because I try and just trust my gut, trust that it's going to tell me or give me the question that I need to ask next. And it's what I encourage my clients and anyone else I'm speaking to do as well, is because once you can develop that relationship with yourself, and you're on good terms with it, and you can trust your own instincts, that's a very powerful place to be. With that, anytime you're in a challenging situation or a place that doesn't feel right, or you're with someone that doesn't feel right, or you're doing something that is a bad habit, you're going to tell yourself that you're going to have that feeling. And then if you can trust yourself and listen to that feeling, then you can stop what you're doing, get out of the situation or whatever it is, and then you can move on. I mean, you've probably been in times yourself where you've been in a situation where you walked into your room, you're like, this doesn't feel right. I shouldn't be here. Maybe there's some sketchy people or something like that. It's like, I shouldn't be here. My gut's telling me to leave. And so you leave. All right. Or you've been in a situation where you haven't listened to your gut and you've stayed, and something bad has happened, or something that's not serving you has happened.
Yeah, that's true. But how do you help clients to raise their awareness? Is there any practice, any tips that we can quickly, that you can just put me through right now? Let's say, for instance, that I am the client, and for 5 minutes I came to you with, one or two challenges, and I'm like, I need help with this thing. So how
Hmm.
can you help me, improve or increase my awareness?
Yeah, look, once again, it's not really like a quick fix type of thing. I
Uh-huh.
think to raise your awareness, you have to bring things inside yourself which are out of your awareness to the surface. That can only, well, I wouldn't say it only, but that tends to happen a couple of times when you're most receptive to it. So, and this kind of goes back into consuming videos and things like that. Where if you're most receptive to something that someone is saying and you're watching a video, you'll hear it and you'll be like, that makes sense. And you have an insight. And then you
Yeah.
start to see the world a bit differently, right? But you could have heard the same thing or watched the same video 1,000 times before. It didn't have any impact. It's because at the time you weren't receptive to it. Like you just weren't open to it. But you've had things happen or you've learned a couple of things and now you're open to it. And it's the same thing. When you're most receptive to like coaching or working with someone, that's when it's a good relationship because you're willing to play the game as well because a lot of the work is very deep. And the way I help my clients raise their awareness is I have to get them or help them find out where their behavior is coming from, like what their fears are, what beliefs are driving that behavior, which they weren't aware of. They might just be like, oh, I'm procrastinating. And that's how they see it. I just procrastinate. I'm not motivated. But in reality, under all that, there's going to be a deep issue of like a limiting belief. Maybe I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm too scared to step out and do something great. Do you know what I mean? Or I'm not comfortable in my own skin. All these things, and the way to find that is to ask some deep, powerful questions. So, like you said, you could come to me, you could tell me your problems in 5 minutes, but it might take a little bit longer. That I might be able to reframe and help them to see what their problem is in a different way. But usually, it takes a lot of deep questioning to help them uncover what's actually going on. I can't tell you what it is. I have to help you uncover it within inside yourself.
Yeah. Why does anyone need a coach to be able to ask or answer this deep questioning?
Mm. Do you know what? I don't think it's necessarily about someone needing a coach. I think it's more a want. When I work with people, I don't want them to feel like they need me, but I want them to be in a position where they say, you know what, I want this. I want to be coached by Nathan, or I liked what we've experienced so far. I want more of it. And I think it could be a couple of reasons. If they feel like they need it, maybe they're in a role somewhere, or they're at a stage in their life where it's like they have hit a wall and they've got no idea what to do, and they're in despair, and they're like, you know what, I need to do something. Then they could look for like a coach or someone like that to help them with their challenges. That's when I would say it's more of like a need, but it's usually when, and this is the better place to come from, because if you feel like you need something, then chances are there's going to be more resistance for it. Because anytime someone told you when you're a kid, especially, it's like your parents tell you, oh, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, you need to be brushing your teeth, you need to be getting dressed, and all they're all good things, but they give you most resistance. I know my kids do the same thing. Anytime I tell them they need to do something, that's usually when they're like, no, we're not going to do it, or they're going to give me tantrums and they're going to carry on and it's going to take time. But when they feel like they want to do something, like, hey, we're going to go down to the pool or we're going to go to the park, they're up, they're dressed, they're moving, and they want to do it. And I think it's the same with people. If they feel like there's something that they want to do, not something that they don't want anymore, but something they want to do, like you wanted to become a coach, or someone wants to start a business, or they want to make more money, not because they're feeling sad because they're not making enough. It's like, I want to look after my family, and so I want to make more money, or I've got a passion business I want to start. I think that's when people want to go for coaching. They're like, I know I want this. I don't have the skills to do it, or I know something's stopping me. So I want to go get that help. And I think that's probably the differentiator between it. And I think that's the place where most people start from, is like they want something, but they just know that getting help to get it is going to be more beneficial than them trying to do it themselves.
Um, can you shed more light about like this difference between need and want? And the reason I said so is that I feel like we can sometimes use it interchangeably,
Mm-hmm.
like interchangeably. And what I mean is, for instance, people sometimes hire a coach because they want the coach to change them, right? They have this belief that once I hire a coach, I'm just going to be there, I'm just going to sit and the coach is going to tell me all the answers.
Yeah.
So they are hiring a coach, I feel, because they need, or they feel like, oh, I need a coach, not because they want. So I want you to like shed more light on need and want.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on the context as well. So if someone was coming to me and they said they were expecting me to do all the work, it doesn't work like that. Like that's very different type of relationship. Like a coach is, or a good coach isn't supposed to give the client all the answers. They're supposed to help them find the answers themselves, and it's up to the client to do pretty much all the work. Like we share insights, we share some knowledge and things like that to help them raise their awareness. But ultimately, it's up to the client to do the work. But then it does depend on the context as well, because I remember doing a post recently where I spoke about the needs first mindset. And so we have to understand that there's a lot of things that we do want out there, like we want more money, bigger, like a car, whatever it may be. But we also have to understand that the reason that why we want that is coming from the deep inner need of things like maybe love, connection, and a few others like that. So it does depend on the specific area that you're talking on as well. But the big difference is like a need is something that has to happen for whatever reason. A want is more of a you could do without it. Do you know what I mean? So if you really need something, then like getting your needs, your inner needs met, that's very important. But if it's a want, and it's like, yeah, I want a new house or I want a bigger house, but if it doesn't happen, then look, it's ultimately okay. And I think that's probably the best way to kind of break it down.
Is it okay to say that the need is something that we logically think about, and then the want is something our body moves towards
Um,
in the context of hiring a coach?
yeah, I think
Like for instance, should I give an example?
yeah, please do.
Okay, for instance, I procrastinate a lot, I'm not disciplined, all of those things. And then I just feel like I need a coach, because once I get the coach, I'm going to stop procrastinating. I'm going to be disciplined, right? That's from the lens of need. And then want is something like having realized, doing everything that you can within your power, consuming stuff, um, doing self-reflection, and then realizing that this is something that might like is just so obvious that I can't see beyond what I can see. So I want a coach to help me.
Yeah. So I think yes, logically is where the needs come from. But at the same time, sometimes logic goes out the window as well, because logically we can know what we need or even what we want to do, but then do we actually do it? Do you know, because we like logically, I know I need to stop eating the chocolate bar, or logically, I know I need to be more disciplined. Um, and so, yes, I logically, I know I need a coach, and I think that's more of like a, like I said, what like the barriers kind of pop up around that time, because it is, yeah, logically we do want that, but it's not really in the area of logic that we want, because it's like if I want something and I want to work with someone, or I want to create something, sometimes it's not very logical, because especially when it's talking about making more money, and someone who says like I'm making 20 grand a year now, but I want to make 100 grand a year, there's a big jump there as well. And in their mind, that's not logical, because it's like, well, I've got no idea how I'm going to do it. I don't know what steps to take. I've never made that much money before. Is that even possible? And all these things. So logically, it doesn't make sense to go for it. But when there's that drive towards it, where it's like, I want it, that's not logical, but that's the
Yeah.
drive as well. And we always say it's like you should never be coming from a place of the things that you don't want, because the don't want is the things that provide the need. It's like, well, I don't want to be poor anymore, so I need to make more money. And as soon as you say I need to make more money, you're automatically telling yourself that you're poor, and you like you're coming from a place of, you know, like in a negative place. But if you're moving towards the, oh, well, I want this instead, it's a lot more positive, and it moves you forward much quicker as well.
Mm. Mm. I love that. I love what you just talked about. Earlier today, I was thinking about plan, which is
Mm.
commitment. Before now, I used to say to myself, I'm not committed. And the lens that I'm looking at commitment is through the lens of I'm not following the logical plan that I've mapped out. And what I've realized is that it's okay to have a plan, but life does not evolve around the plans that I have. So my like what brings about that statement, I'm not committed, is because I'm not allowing life, to just help me build or see this plan in a bigger way. I'm holding tightly to what I know.
Sure.
So if anything happens beyond what I know, it becomes a threat. And then that statement of I'm not committed comes in. So which kind of like links to what you said about needs and wants.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a strong belief as well when you keep telling yourself I'm not committed,
Yeah,
because that
yeah.
just adds more power to it as well. Like the more you try and
And in
say
the
it.
real sense, like I have actually been committed, just that I'm doing it like differently from the plans that I have.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny when you say that because that's a really good example, and this is kind of part of raising your awareness as well because
Mm,
you may tell yourself you're not committed, but that's such a broad statement. When if you
mm,
looked into different aspects of your life, there's going to be areas where you are committed. Right. And I've had this with clients as well. They say, well, I'm not motivated. I'm not a hard worker. But then when you boil it down, you say, well, what about when you go to work every day? Okay, yeah, well, I'm a hard worker there. Okay. And what about when you're a mum at home and you're looking after the kids and cleaning up the house and doing things like that? Okay, yeah, well, I'm a hard worker there as well. So it's not like you're not a hard worker. There's just a couple of areas where you struggle to work as hard or you struggle to have that motivation. But there's other areas where you are motivated. So it's a question of, well, why aren't you motivated here compared to over there? And it's usually just like that one little bit of awareness or one bit of perception change that needs to happen to be like, oh, okay, so I am motivated. I'm a motivated person. Right. So how can I apply that motivation to this side of my life or this area, which I thought was a problem, but it's actually not a problem because I'm already motivated. So I think that's a really good example of what you said about being committed because it makes a lot of sense because I can guarantee that there's areas in your life, even when you're saying that to yourself, where you were committed, committed in your business, committed at home to your family, whatever it was. So it's not that you weren't committed. It's just there was probably an area or two that you aren't as committed.
mm. So are you in support of this question that this sentence that says how you do one thing is how you do everything?
Um, I wouldn't say I fully support it, no, because like I look at my own life and there's things that I do or I put more energy and effort in to compared to other things as well. I see some similarities, like some
Mm,
common patterns across certain areas of my life, but there are areas where I'm a lot more involved than others. So I wouldn't support that. And if you think about it, that almost seems like an imposed belief as well. So if you hear someone once say that where you do one thing is where you do everything, and you take that on board,
mhm.
then automatically you're going to be feeling bad if you're not rising to a certain level that is an expectation put upon you. Um, and so I think that's the type of thing. It's almost like a belief which has been passed down. A good example of that is when my mum used to say the best years of your life are when you're a kid. At the time, I didn't even really think about it, but the more I've thought about it when I'm older, I'm like, that's a terrible belief. Like that's so this means like my best years are behind me because I was a kid for what 17 years, 16 years, and that's it. I much more enjoy my life now as an adult, a 40-year-old man. But like I just looked at it like that's a belief that is being or trying to be passed down. It's not her fault or anything, but it's the same thing. Like if the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, that's like that seems like a belief which is trying to be forced upon me because maybe there's some things I don't want to be great at. Maybe there's some areas I want to be lazy in, but there's other areas which are more important to me that I'd prefer to put a lot more energy and effort into.
Love that. I could have this conversation forever, but
Me
we need
too.
to wrap it up.
Me too.
Yeah. So I'm
I
going
like.
to ask you two questions just to
Okay.
wrap it up. No, sorry, three. So the first question is, what's one thing you can't live without in your daily life?
Oh, do you mean like an actual thing?
Yeah,
Hmm.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing I can't live without. I don't get too attached to
in,
many things
in your daily life?
in my daily life.
Just one.
Well, yeah, I hate to say it, but probably like my laptop or phone because I need it.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
I do hate to say that.
So the second thing is, what's your favorite way to spend a free time?
Oh, getting outside. So, well, there's two reasons, like spending time with my kids and also getting outside and getting into nature.
Mm. Then the last thing is, where can we find your work?
Yeah, so most of my stuff at the moment is on LinkedIn. So you just look up Nathan Hawken. I am on YouTube as well. So I just put a few videos up there. And if they want to email me, info@nathanhawken.com.
Okay.
I don't have a website or anything like that. I don't never needed one.
Okay. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for this conversation. I understood more things in more like in a broader way. And yeah, I'm just so appreciative of your time. So interesting and so educative.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to speak to you again. I know we've been in contact for over a number of years now, on and off. But yeah, it's been great to catch up, and I really appreciate you inviting me on and giving me a chance to ideally share a little bit of wisdom.
Yeah, thank you so much for accepting the invite.
Yep, no worries at all. Thanks, Sherifat. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nathan.